Hello and welcome everyone to the Friday, February 28th edition of the Contributor Comms team meeting. As a reminder, we do operate under a code of conduct which essentially says to be respectful of your fellow speakers and attendees and generally be excellent to each other. At the beginning of the call here, we like to offer an opportunity for anyone who's on the call to introduce themselves. I will go first. This is totally optional. I'm Kazan Fields, and I'm one of the co-leads of this subproject, which is the contributor communications subproject of SIG ContribEx and open source Kubernetes. The purpose of this group is for us to make sure that contributors within the Kubernetes community know about the awesome stuff that's going on in the community, and also that folks external to the contributor community know about the awesome work that contributors are doing. And we do that through a variety of means, including creating and publishing blog posts, running social media channels for the project, and all kinds of other little things. So welcome. We're excited to have you today. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves?
I feel like most of us know each other already. There's no new people here. I know that. But if you want to introduce
Welcome to
yourself, feel
pass if you
free.
want. Yeah. Always optional. I'll leave that open for a minute and then we'll move on if nobody wants to go today, which is also all perfectly okay. Alrighty. Another reminder before we get going. This is a very casual call. We like to just pop in with whatever we're thinking and stuff. So if you want to pop in at any point in the call to ask a question or you missed a segment, you want to come back to it, anything you want to throw in there, please do. A reminder that the call is recorded. So if you do pop in on video or voice, it will be recorded. You're also welcome to use chat and we can make sure that things are discussed if you don't want to be on the recording. Cool. So, and one other thing that I always almost forget is note taker. So we always like to ask for a volunteer note taker if anyone is up for the job. The role of the note taker is to follow along with what's happening in the discussion and take notes as best you can in the doc, which I am screen sharing. The purpose of this is to make sure that anyone who missed the call or anyone who just likes to follow along via text has that method to figure out what happened in the meeting. So would anyone like to be our note taker today?
I can help.
Thank you, Mario. All right. And with that, we will hop into our agenda. The first item on the agenda is messages of the week, things that are going on in the contributor community that folks need to know about, either externally or internally, contributor audience or end user public audience, especially things to highlight in last week in Kubernetes development. Anyone know of things that are happening this week that we need to be telling people about? At this point, most of the maintainer summit stuff is kind of rolling, right? I did see emails about the unconference submissions being open.
Yeah, I think we already sent a couple of reminders.
Yeah. There's a separate
Yeah.
comms team for the maintainer summit for anyone who might not be aware of that. I think everyone on this call is familiar, but so we don't have to handle all of that. But if we want it mentioned in LWKD, we might want to put it here though.
Yes.
Yeah, that's already
Might as well.
gone in.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. I'll put it in anyway for good measure. Conference submissions for maintainer summit are open. Anything else? Yeah, someone was asking me if there were any other dates that they needed to share with folks around KubeCon happenings this week, and I wasn't finding a whole lot, so. We might be able to move on then. We often find things as we go through our other agenda items too, so. Nobody else has any messages of the week coming to mind? Then we'll move on to new items. Josh, you would like a discussion of pending blog posts?
Yeah, I mean, because basically I'm an approver for a contributor site, but it's getting the stuff actually into the contributor blog has been a real problem. Posts seem to hang out as more or less forever without being published, even after they're completed. And I feel like we need a better way for queuing them, where we say, okay, this one's ready to go and it's going to be published with this date. Because that's really not happening. Like the etcd one's been finished for 3-4 weeks and it's just sort of hanging out there. And for that matter, I don't even know which ones are ready for my personal editorial review. So thoughts. I attended this because I knew Federico was going to be here.
Sounds like an excellent topic for discussion. In the comms channel, Federico does usually post a list of active posts, so we can go through that. But
yeah, I
no
actually did that
problem.
a couple of minutes ago. But just to say that I think I'm completely in agreement with this being something that we need to improve.
Yes.
Currently, I'm to be honest, I see myself in the position of submitter, and then I just more or less resign myself to the okay. Let's wait for someone to take a look. I do think that because there's for those that are synced in websites, it's also something a bit more tricky because then we get availabilities and reviews on contributor side, but also on website because it's going to be synced. I think this has improved somewhat in the last year or so because we ended up making sure that everyone knew that the initial reviews need to be done at contributor sites, and only when that's approved should it be it should go into the website already fully done. But I mean, as for suggestions to solve this, I'm not sure. Maybe from my side, I can every week, for example, bother someone saying this is the list. I generally do this in SIGDocs blogs as well because of the website component. But I can certainly make this more visible to someone, because I also agree, Josh, that just going into the open PRs sometimes is not clear what needs. Well, one thing that I've been doing is that I use the whip flag and the title when I'm personally or someone else is still working on it, and I remove the work in progress tag when it's ready for review. So around these lines, maybe we can improve this somewhat. But I don't know, thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of feel like, so, and maybe there'd be something terrible to do, but I kind of feel like I would like to have a separate project board or separate columns for the blog posts so that we can have a column called ready to publish and set a date on it. Because the problem is that these blog posts are all mixed in the main comms project board, but the main comm project board is not designed for the states that articles go through. Right, where they're drafting and then editing and then ready to publish. And it kind of feels like we need those states, because if I look and I see something that's ready to publish, as an approver, I can just go through and approve that.
I mean, wouldn't a ready to publish column mostly solve that. You're trying to think within the scope
Yeah.
of this. So
Yeah, like I said, either a separate board or new columns, one way or the other.
yeah. I would prefer a new column just because I
Mhm.
think that there's a substantial amount of work that's blog
Yeah.
related. So it's helpful to have a unified view. But I also agree that currently there's this gap between ready for review and done. So I think that a dedicated column to start with, then if it doesn't work, we can
Yeah.
change, but a dedicated would be great. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess the other question is, what is our process for setting the publication dates for these blog posts? Because I've not been able to figure that out.
So I don't have like this good answer.
Yeah.
Whenever it's done, I look forward in the calendar and try to propose a day. If I happen to know that a specific week is, for example, a release week or has a lot of feature blogs, then that's mostly known to us through other means. So that's sort of avoided. But apart from that, there's no strict policy. I'll give you an example, the SIG apps Spotlight, which was the recent one, the last one. So it was created as a work in progress around 2 weeks ago, and I just thought, well, 3 weeks from now, it's likely that it's ready. And the reality is that the work in progress tag was removed yesterday, so now we have around a week to go around and review. If that's not enough, then I bump it for another day, but that day hasn't got a lot of science behind it. It's mostly open up the calendar and that's it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking that we need somewhere where we track these projected dates. Other than in the text of the post itself, since that is hard to change.
Yeah.
Because what really needs to happen is when something's actually ready to go and we can actually give it a publication date, then one of us needs to edit the PR, put in that publication date, do an LGTM, and then one of the other ones of us needs to approve it. And that could go a lot faster if all of us who were approvers had a date that we could refer to. So I don't know whether we want to just get in the practice of putting that in as a comment on the PR, whether we want a spreadsheet with a listing of dates. But in other words, something that is not in your head, Federico.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's largely Tim's head and Federico's head, sadly.
Yeah. And that's a problem, right? Because when we update the date, we lose the LGTM on the post, and that's its own problem, but I don't have a solution for it. And that means that it takes 2 people to do the final approval, and that's slowed down if the date only exists in 2 people's heads. And maybe it's not the same date in both of those people's heads.
Right.
This is an excellent point.
Yeah.
Could use some process.
And and to
For...
that you add the web, so you have the contributor site dates, and then you also have to take into account if the blog is published on the website, likely someone at that end will also have the visibility because maybe it overlaps with the Kubernetes release mid-cycle one, and we don't necessarily want that. So yeah. I'm just mentioning this because I think that the SIGDocs blog team has a way of tracking this. I'm not sure if it would be helpful for us to understand what it is, to see if it's something that we can repurpose or not.
What's the criteria for publishing to both sites? Like, is there a series of things that we need to align on? Because it seems like a lot of them are getting published to the main site and we could just use that calendar. or whatever tool.
What I wrote in the instructions some time ago that we have on our the guidelines
Hmm.
is that if the article has interest for contributors, then it's on Kates.dev.
Right.
If it also has an interest to the community at large, then it goes to others. And spotlights are a good example here because they are obviously about the contributors, so they go into Kubernetes.dev, but they are also meant to expose the work of the contributors to the community at large. Apart from this one, which is like more or less established, we actually have this discussion in several of them. Should this also be going in websites? I would say on a per article
Basis,
way that
yeah.
we,
But Kates.dev is considered kind of the primary place for all
Yes.
of our articles to start.
Yes, correct.
Yes, and actually the canonical URL of the ones on the website always points to the contributor sites one. But yeah, the calendar. So
So I think kind of the question is who owns the process of setting the date? If on one hand, the person who is creating the blog is the consistent point between both the website and Kates.dev, Kubernetes.io and Kates.dev. So there's an argument to be made for the person creating the blog to own it from that perspective. And they are one of the two approvals that will be needed in both places. On the other hand, we could do it from the Kates.dev perspective, where that's our primary publishing location. We usually publish most of them also to the website, to Kubernetes.io, but that one kind of has its own process with the docs blogs team. So maybe what we need is a process specifically for Kates.dev. Thoughts?
As much as possible, I'd like to reuse existing stuff, but I do understand that it might not be reusable for our needs.
So I think the next step is to ask SIG docs what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, we also have a sort of physical limitation, which is that only whoever owns the PR can actually change the date.
Which kind of sucks. Yeah. I feel like.
Which means if that person is not available, then we can't publish.
Right.
Or
and
we
I
have
also
to make
feel
a copy of
like.
the PR and start over.
I also feel like there could be a way to automate that. I don't know about the actual changing of the PR, but like at least dictating the date, right? Like here's the current stuff in the queue.
I am so not hacking Hugo.
You're so what?
not hacking
Hugo.
No,
Yeah.
I don't.
The real answer, honestly, the real answer for that is, a change to Hugo.
Yeah,
it can set the date when something is merged.
I mean, what would be an option would be, but this is also additional work, is that we have a proud job where we can basically define the date, and then this is basically PR'd into afterwards. So when the PR is merged, like a post merge hook, that it's then updating it. But this would be work.
Yeah. So yeah,
so
aside
that we
from
merge
that,
it first and then post submit hook. No, not post submit. It's it would be a post merge hook and then update the same file. But this would also mean that we need to automatically then open another PR for the merge date. For the publication date.
This is an issue that we always encountered when we had the repo for social media posts as well. It was like, how can we schedule things? And it was like, hold and have someone manually unhold it at the time it's supposed to go out.
Oof.
There's
Yeah.
no like hold
yeah.
merge until this specific time functionality in GitHub or Prow.
Yeah, and if I recall, we actually had to dump all that because it just didn't work. Yeah. So
Yeah, we ended up dropping our repo for social media interaction because we were never going to get that functionality to schedule posts.
mhm.
And that's the same issue here, kind of. Could be.
There's also the idea of automatically publishing on the merge date, for example, that also carries some problems, because last time that I have a discussion with them about this, publishing on during the weekend, for example, was not something that we were aiming at, because of generally it will reduce the audience, and then you have triggers on social media, so you do need to retain some control on the specifics. That it.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%
No, I don't
agree.
have it. Yeah, I don't have a solution for this. I'm just going to acknowledge that it's an ongoing problem, right? Because, for example, if you own the PR and it's ready to go, but the publication date needs to be changed, we just have to wait for you to be available again, or we need to make a copy of the PR and owned by somebody else.
Aren't help me here, but I'm not saying that this is ideal either, but can't changes be made by the reviewers as well?
No,
because that's one of the flags that I say yes when I open the PR is allow for.
So the problem is changes can be made basically by our GitHub admins.
Okay.
Not by reviewers.
Yeah.
Reviewers can suggest changes, but the owner of the PR needs to accept them.
Yeah, it's the GitHub admins. Absolutely. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and this has been an acknowledged problem like all over the project, right? Where there's lots of times where somebody wants to make just a tiny edit. But the problem is that we have who Prow considers to be owners of the repo, but that's different from who GitHub considers to be owners.
I mean, the only chance that we
rely
have
on the GitHub owners. Yeah.
The only chance that we have is, but this is probably something that we would need to discuss in London, with the new features and changes that we get from the GitHub team, that they if something like this is possible, and we also have GitHub folks around, so that we if there's the possibility that we can go around GitHub admins and give specific rights for specific people to change those dates, or to change those PRs maybe. But this is something that we need to figure out, probably together with GitHub.
There's also, now that you mention improvements and stuff like that, we did use something different on the Kubernetes 132 release for the announcements, which was all the, not the announcements, but the spotlight, the feature blogs. They were actually all lined up and pre-approved, and I think that the only thing that was changed was the draft flag or something.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I can't remember the specifics, but it was, but I can look them up. And the idea was exactly to try to avoid this flow of you need to change something, you change it, but then you need to LGTM it again, etc. So they were all mostly reviewed and lined up with the dates with the dates agreed and set, and then the only thing that was done was to remove the draft, and I think this was being done through a separate PR. I know maybe it doesn't apply to us because this was to be sure that a series of blogs would be ready, but I'll take a look and report back in the next meeting or in the channel.
That'd be great.
Okay. Well, sounds like more follow-up, particularly around the date process, so we can figure out something.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the meantime, thank you, Josh, for bringing it up, and thank you, Frederico, for always making sure that things are in the board and shared in the comms channel. The amount of reminders that we have about it is how we are as successful as we are with this. So thank you for doing that.
It's my pleasure, and then thank you, Josh, for bringing this in, because honestly, this is something that also bothers me. But I must confess that I've become used to it. So it's you end up not caring that much. But looking from above, it's certainly something that we need to improve. SIG etcd, for example, it's one. It's clear. It's a clear example of this. It could have been published 4 weeks ago. It's not urgent, but some of the questions, for example, they're linked to the stats pages and stuff like that. And I mean, 1 month more, and they could be substantially different. And then the text would say, we have 100 contributors, but now we have 300. So that's not ideal.
Yeah.
That seems like
I have
something
a
that maybe we could
suggestion to
address.
make.
Go ahead.
We have like blogging shadows, and Federico is already working with them. So if we can hold a bi-weekly meeting, where we we like that meeting will be very specific to the blogs, and Federico and the blogging shadows can work together, and they can find a solution, and that for the time being, that the LGTM and the approval thing is also can be acknowledged by this if we do it on a bi-weekly basis, because in 2 weeks I think there are sufficient amount of blogs that are piled up.
I think the issue is that even if we did that, if the docs lead or our blogging lead and the shadows met every other week, they could say, here are the ones, the current blogs in the pipeline that are stuck because of this issue, but they couldn't directly fix it because they need the person who created the PR to fix it. So if one of them created the PR, that could work, but if none of them created the PR, then they won't be able to make progress.
Like in most cases, I guess Federico created the PR, and if he will be leading that team, then that works. And what we can do is, like, if someone is enough like trustworthy, we can also uh, transfer some responsibility to that particular person as well. It depends.
I understand your point, but for me, there's a bigger issue here, which is we depend on people which will not be on that team, because we can do a lot of stuff, but we're not approvers.
Right.
So one of the reasons why I end up asking, not forcing, but asking if people want me to open the PR is because I know that I will typically address comments reasonably early as they are made, and some people could not be as used to doing that, and then it would be complex. I always add the authorship to the authors is more. Let me. Essentially, if you're open to PR, you should also be prepared to do the rest. And in the past, we've had some issues there because then you need to know how to accept the comments, reviews, etc. So that's one of the reasons why I end up opening up when it's agreed. How do we? So I think there are two things here. One, the dates, and two, how do we get the approvals? Because for the dates, for the visibility of the approvers, I think that the additional column is something that's a quick win that we can just do more or less immediately. And that's something obvious that we should have done a long time ago. How to determine the dates, that's a bit more complex, but we should see with SIG ContribEx what they are using, and perhaps come with our own guidelines around dates.
I wonder, about dates. I wonder if we could kind of like pre-allocate like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, SIG Docs blog. Those are your dates. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. Those are comms dates, right? Like something like that could work in the interim until we get something better. But again, I want to see what Docs has and go from there.
I think that just comes back to creating a written process. But the problem with having a written process is you have to have people to follow that process.
Yes, that's an issue.
Yeah. So the idea of having the blogging team meet every other week would kind of work, but not because of preferred best practices or processes, because Federico is a boss who creates a lot of our PRs because he's trying to make things easier for folks. But that's not how we want it to be.
Yeah.
Ideally, the blogging lead and their shadows are not owners of either of the two key pieces of this problem, which are setting the date and getting the approvals.
One thing we can do, if I don't know whether it will work or not, but if we can get approval on the team as well, but this is like very subjective. Like if I know people are very busy and all, so if we can also get an approval on the meeting, like because it is bi-weekly, I think it is possible. Then the team becomes like a complete thing. So one can review, one can approve, and they can all get up with couple of blogs in a particular meeting.
There's a couple things I want to go into there, and we do only have 20 minutes left, so we should probably move on from this at some point. But one is that is the root of the problem, is we need the creator of the PR and the approvers to basically sit down together at the same time to get the thing done. Ideally, that would be the fastest way to a solution. The other interesting thing to this is the idea of having the approvers in the group of our blogging leads and shadows. The thing I like about that is that Tim is completely overwhelmed and desperately needs help. And that we definitely need better processes for how we maintain the contributor website. That's something that we keep talking about. We kind of help to own it, but we don't really help to own it as much as we maybe could. So if we had better processes for raising up approvers of the contributor site and or Kubernetes IO, those would be really helpful things for us to have in the project. And maybe the comms blogging leadership team is a good place to help do that.
Okay, so if the underlying issue is like the approver and the creator of the PR needs to sit together, so we can do one thing. We will keep the approver constant, and we can change the creator of PR. Like we will create the PR in the meeting itself, and anyone Federico and the blogging shadows, we can assume, let's take an example. There are 4 folks, including Federico. So if Federico is not available, one of the blogging shadows will create the PR in the meeting itself, and we can time the meeting according to the approver's schedule. Because and at that point of time, what will happen? Like if one person is not available, maybe if Federico is not available, one of the blogging shadows can create the PR, because creating the PR, I am assuming that it is a simple stuff. I have never done it. Like I have never created a blog PR, so I don't know. But I am assuming that it is fairly a simple stuff to do, and with a couple of like if someone don't know, we can teach them in a fair like in a small time frame. So if we can keep the approver constant and we can like change the creator of the PR and we can create the PR in the meeting itself. So what will happen? Like if there are 4 blocks, one person will create 4 PRs in the meeting itself, and the approval will approve it. Uh, this
And,
I
can
and
be
like
done.
I still like the approver idea. The issue with the PR idea is that we try to do as much of the review as we can outside of the PR process. So if we were able to complete all of the review steps outside of the PR process, that would work. But
yeah,
we
but
can't.
exactly. I mean, I was going to say something to that effect. Arpit, one thing. I'm not against having more fixed meetings, but I would have to be convinced that they actually will
Have
solve
value.
an issue, because they are an additional burden of time for everyone. I mean, for example, the PRs that I create are often after hours, whenever
Yeah.
I can. I mean, sometimes they can take 10 minutes to create. If you need to create 3, it's half an hour, right? And it's a bit of it's not a group thing. It's something that you just pull, branch, create, correct, set fill column to 100, stuff like this. So that's one thing that concerns me, is that I don't see that the problem is necessarily that we are not in sync in terms of opening the PRs. I don't think that we have an opening the PR problem. We have a let's approve and get it published problem, more than anything else. In terms of what Kessler just mentioned, so we do have the and this was back then actually proposed by Josh as well, in terms of reducing the amount of reviews that need to be done at the GitHub level, because not everyone likes the GitHub interface to do it. So we do have the HackMD approach that we share. I think it's useful. We do it, but let me be clear that the actual visibility, the pair of eyes that go into that, is very reduced, right? Because generally only when the GitHub PR is open and people start to receive the emails, notifications, etc., something, I mean, it's natural, because then that is part of the work in progress. The HackMD stuff is a comment in a channel. It's easy to get overlooked.
Yeah. So what about actually putting the HackMD WIPs into the issue?
That can work. But do you think that the problem is that we are not getting enough reviews on the PR, and we would have those reviews in the HackMD? Because
I
there
know
are
for
different
me,
people. So
yeah, I know for me. So the problem with Slack is somewhat asynchronous, but not completely asynchronous, right? So if you post something in Slack in your morning, I'm just not going to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that
Yeah.
was 8 hours ago for me.
Yeah.
The and you know, part of this is I'm optimizing for me, but I'm a reviewer, and I think I'm an approver, and I think I'm in the same situation as a lot of other approvers, which is honestly, for a lot of this little stuff, like, hey, help edit this blog post, I do it, like, say, when I'm in a meeting that I'm required to attend but really don't care about, and so I need something where I can refer to a list, you know, where I can look up something highly asynchronously and say, oh, hey, this is still pending. Let me go take a look at it.
So
And
basically,
yeah.
basically, we need an edge approver architecture where we need to make sure that we have approvers at the edge of our network, as close to the creators, PR creators, as possible.
by the
Yeah,
way,
well,
it is
and
it
just
is the Spotlight
something
was
anywhere
merged.
that's highly asynchronous, right?
And we have less than 15 minutes left. So
Okay, so I'll think about it. We can add this to the issue. It's also okay, and we can actually use that in the ready for review while they are there, and then ready for publication would be more about this just requires the flag. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for this discussion on this important issue that affects the whole project, actually, which is why we've spent this much time on it. So it's an important conversation to have, and considering all angles will help us maybe someday find a solution. All right. So moving on, there is one more item in our agenda, which I doubt that we'll have anything on, but just to check, any updates, big wins, or other new items that folks in the group know about and want to mention?
We should start the document for the social post for KubeCon.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Social.
Because we are 1 month out.
Yeah.
But why though?
No.
Because we have 5 KubeCons.
Oh God.
That is why.
Uh,
That and it's just, time. But all right. Good point. Yes. Let me put that on my to-do list. But
I mean, we don't have to start a new document. We can just create a new thing for in the old document.
right.
Yeah.
Tab.
Absolutely. Someone just needs to actually do that. So social shadows who want actual work to do. This is work to do for social shadowing. Ping me and let's make it happen.
Also, I have a doubt. Lately, there are so many KubeCons happening. Like apart from main ones, which are North America and Europe. So are we going to cover each and every KubeCon? For example, KubeCon Japan, then we have KubeCon India. I guess there will be more in upcoming years. So are we going to cover, from the social media perspective, are we going to cover each and every one of them, or only the main KubeCons?
I would say ideally, yes. A KubeCon
Yeah.
is a main KubeCon. And so ideally, our social team should be big enough and distributed enough that we can cover all of them. That's my opinion.
And we did it for India.
Yeah.
I mean, not in the same scale, but this is also due that the scale of KubeCon India is a little bit different, and not all of the events are happening there. But we did it for India. It was mostly a 2-people job, but yeah. So the goal would be also do it for Japan and for India. The good thing for Japan and India is that it's close to each other. So it's basically like you prepare the one, you can also then directly prepare the other, because I think it's only like some weeks apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the Asia ones are so close together. All right. So yes, ideally we need to establish better processes and maybe do some recruiting for the social team in order to do that.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that.
Yeah.
Go team.
Woohoo!
Maybe the social team needs to have those bi-weekly meetings.
Oh, I know,
Honestly.
right?
I'm gonna put that down actually.
Yeah,
Social
don't.
team bi-weekly meetings.
Don't.
Honestly, that needs to happen, I think.
Yeah. Probably right.
Like I am all up for it.
Good. Because we'll need your help for sure. All right.
I have one other topic.
Yes, please.
We need to update our charter. Because basically, based on the decision that was made for the blog post, where the steering officially covered that Comms is owner of all of the social channels. And we just need to state this in our charter and should list all of the active channels that we have. I can do this.
Comms is officially the owner of all project social channels.
Yeah.
As dictated by the steering committee.
Yep.
And we should call that out explicitly. I like it. Yeah, no joke on that bi-weekly socials meeting. We should actually do that.
Yeah, we really should. Yeah.
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 We'll set that up.
Huh.
And with that, we have 8 minutes left. Let's hop into the board. Unless anyone has any other off-board items, we'll try to go through what we can on the board real quick. There's a whole bunch of stuff in Ready for Review. A few of them are purple. SIG etcd. Oh, that wasn't purple at the beginning of this meeting, I don't think. So, so go team. We got the people in the same place at the same time. Oh, and Tim happened to be on. Well, this to continue our main discussion of the day. Throwing another wrench into that discussion. Tim commented 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
when you're planning to mirror articles to the main site, please try to coordinate there. Basically telling us to treat the main site as our primary, even though k8s.dev is our primary, kind of. Go ahead, Federico.
No, I was just going to say that it was merged. I also received a notification. I haven't read the comments yet.
Yay. I'll go and make sure the mirror article merges okay, but it's frustrating that I'm doing this on a Friday afternoon. I know it's also frustrating to see articles not getting reviewed. A bigger team editing the main blog would really help.
But this is in reply to something? Sorry, because I don't see the...
I just approved the SIG etcd spotlight.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you said it was ready to publish, so I went ahead and approved it. And so one of the things, so we should talk to Tim about this, which is, I don't think we should have 2 separate blogs. I don't think we have the staff to maintain 2 separate blogs, clearly.
Okay.
We definitely don't.
If we're mirroring 70% of the content between the 2 blogs, then what's the point?
I agree.
Also, no one knows that the k8s.dev blog exists.
Right.
And we also had a discussion, basically the same discussion we had for the community subpage for k8s.io and k8s.dev. It's the same topic. We have the same information on 2 sites. They are not in sync, and it's horrible to keep them in sync because we are lacking the people to actually oversee this.
And another wrench in that, the .io debacle, which will someday rear its head again. An issue with that is that there's a proposal and there's a good contingent of the community that would love to see k8s.io move to k8s.dev, which would then create the problem of what do we do with the contributor site. But if our proposal is get rid of the contributor site and just make sure that all of that content is represented appropriately on k8s.io, which will now be k8s.dev, that solves one problem in the potential issue that the community will have if the .io domain ever goes away.
Yeah.
But I think this decision needs to be made a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm. You are not wrong.
Where do I put that? Let's put that at the top of new items.
Yeah. Good idea.
I think maybe the outcome of our whole discussion here today is let's ask steering if we can merge k8s.dev. Well, maybe get rid of k8s.dev and make sure that all of that stuff is appropriately represented in k8s.io, which then opens up .dev for that eventuality.
Which is basically also something that steering already, or not steering, but at least Ben already kicked off in a discussion last October.
Right.
With
Which
the
I think
idea,
we all agreed with that. Yeah.
Can we move the stuff to k8s.dev?
So yeah, if you forget, the proposal was if IO goes away for whatever reason, everything moves to the dev domain, the contributor site would have been a subdomain. But if we're thinking put it all together, that problem goes away.
And also it would help us to get more visibility on contributor topics as well. So basically the idea would also be that like people would see like, hey, there are like contributor awards, there are like social events, there's like this, and I think people this might actually also be like a nice gimmick for people to get aware of, hey, there are actually people behind this working on Kubernetes and not AI bots.
It also solves the problem of the comms team owning but not really owning Kates.dev.
Yeah.
And it solves the problem of the Hugo on the Kates.dev site.
Yeah,
Yes. Two different sites are hard to maintain already.
Yeah,
This is solving
there
real
are
problems.
yeah, there are some other technical problems. So let's start
Yeah.
that it creates. So let's start that discussion.
Let's do it. So I think the action is to ask steering about this.
Yeah, steering and docs, I think that's the main discussion point. So it's basically, I think the first step would be going over to docs, asking about their opinions and their feelings about this, and then come up with an idea and then pitch it to steering. When is the next docs meeting?
Solving problems with deprecations and closing things is a good way to solve things. Like Tim has been saying in all of his 10-year anniversary talks, one of the biggest challenges for Kubernetes in the next 10 years is reducing the amount by which it grows out of control, keeping it sustainable. I like this a lot. Did you find when the next docs meeting is? I would go to kates.dev/calendar personally.
Yeah, I actually have kts.dev/calendar open, and I looked at it, and it's on Tuesday, March the 4th at yeah, it's my time, so it's 7:30 p.m. for my time.
Ouch.
Which is fine, but it's Carnival. That's the main problem.
Yeah, I was about to say, and all that stuff kicking off soon.
Oh, holidays. Holidays are good. SIG Doc's new contributor meet and greet.
Nope.
A
The
little bit down.
1031.
Yeah.
This one.
But funny that they have two. All right. I'm going to put that on my calendar. Darn it. I have a meeting at that time.
Of
Maybe move
course.
that though.
Yeah, I will try to go there. Let's do this. I will try to.
Let me try and get that on my calendar.
Yeah, as many of us as can, please go to the next SIG Docs meeting. All right. Go team. I feel like we actually made some progress on something really hard there.
Well,
something promising anyway.
Yeah.
Awesome. We are at time, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. It has been a delight, as always. Any beyond last minute items before I stop the recording? I think we're all ready to move on. All right. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye to YouTube. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.